Kevin Green is here to share his personal story of overcoming burnout, divorce, career transition, and highlighting men's mental health, vulnerability, and redefining strength. So, welcome to the program, Kevin.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So let's talk about this journey. You're a very busy person. It seems like what caused you initially the sort of the burnout. If you want to go through the career transition, was it a family breakdown? What exactly was it for you?
Yeah, I think throughout my professional journey, there's been seasons of time where I felt burned out or like there was a lot. I know when I was a public educator, it's a situation where you're asked to spend a lot of plates, get compensated for a few of those, and just feel like there's not enough time in the day. And so that's shown up here and there. But I've just decided to pivot a lot. So I've got a lot of stories about that.
Yeah. So okay, so let's talk about. Can you share some of your views on emotional vulnerability? The norms are is tough for men to sort of express themselves because it's hard to be vulnerable as a man sometimes.
Yeah, so we alluded to divorce even, and so I've had a variety of pivots professionally and personally, and I went through some things where I was not great at communicating, and I suffered in silence, and I didn't really know what to do, and I've sought therapy and counseling over the years for different things, but I was fortunate to have some guys at the gym where we could talk a little bit. And I think a lot of men are conditioned to suffer in silence and they don't know what to do about what's going on internally. And so I'm here to say that there's a way to get help. There's a way to seek help, and we can find resolution.
But why do you think men still struggle to talk openly about mental health? You mentioned that you found these group of guys at the gym, but it's not a common thing that amongst folks, even friends, close friends, to talk about what they struggle with when it comes to mental health.
Well, I think for a lot of us, we're grown up in at least a generation where men are supposed to be tough and have it all figured out. And, as a speaker, one of the things people fear the most about speaking is being seen, being vulnerable. It's that expression and likeliness that you'll be judged. And so, as men, like, I don't want to be seen as insufficient or not enough. And so, it's easier to be quiet, not say anything, and just deal with it. And so, we need to encourage men to speak up, share their thoughts, find help, etc. There's no shame in that, and I think actually it's one of the greatest forms of strength being expressed is to be vulnerable and be able to articulate what's going on.
Yeah, and for yourself, what were some of the warning signs of burnout in your own life? And how did you initially respond to it?
Yeah, so I had this is in 2023. It was the one of the most challenging years of my life. I thought I was going to scale my personal chef business. I met a guy. We were talking about being partners and scaling something. I was also going through divorce, and it was just I was at a professional conference in the fall. I was literally sitting in a seat at a conference, dealing with this jerk of a potential partner trying to get me to do things that were outside of my expertise that I didn't own up to, all the while dealing with a phone call with a lawyer on lunch break. And I was like, what in the world is happening right now? And so I still showed up, I still attended and got value in the conference. But when all that smoke cleared, like I had to take the first few months of 2024 and was like, you know what? I can't force issue. I can't worry about bills being paid. I'm going to build some margin and just ease into this, rest, reset, and press on the gas in 6 months. And that's exactly what I had to do.
Yeah, which is tough. You're dealing with so much as a man. You're dealing with going through a divorce. Launching a career, things like that. How can how do you do pursue success without compromising their mental health? How can men do this while compromising their mental health and their sort of emotional well being?
Yeah. So I've had a bent towards OCD or compulsive brain wiring since I was little. And so it's one of those things that I even tried medicine for, but it's just managed to understand it now, understand the design and how it works as it relates to perfectionism, uncertainty, the need for control. But I look at it like this: if there was a fence, if lock was a fence and there was fear on one side and faith on the other, generally speaking, there's questions on both sides. So it's just this daily choice or momentary choice of which uncertainty do I want to live with and which one serves me the best. And I think we all know that like the positive side is the one that pushes you forward. And so we have to live with that uncertainty and with that trust factor in order to have a high level of mental health.
You mentioned about going through these transitions. I can't even imagine sitting at a conference and going through a divorce and going getting those calls in the middle of it and trying to sort of try to get some value out of what you're attending. So what helps you navigate these transitions between divorce and career shifts? Those are two large family, large life events.
Yeah. It's tough. I am an active person. I race in these things called High Rocks. It's a hybrid fitness
Mm.
competition. I've always been a runner. I ran a distance in college. And so we have to have some outlet that's healthy. And so fortunately, I didn't ever turn to the pill or the drink for that or whatever, but I've always found an outlet in fitness. And so for me, that keeps me in check. I say that running's the one thing that never betrayed, never lied, never cheated, never stole. And so for a lot of us, fitness can be that outlet. It keeps me sharp, keeps me sane. And outside of that, like I believe that there's a space for journaling and like some brain priming activities that we can do to kind of rewire our brain to get us aligned, to get us focused and more productive and at peace.
Yeah, since you run so much and it's so much part of your life, if you ever miss a day or ever miss a session, does it feels off? Your whole day feels off a little bit?
Yes, it's kinda like brushing your teeth. Once you do a certain thing long enough, it becomes part of who you are and your routine. So, I get kinda cranky if I go 1 or 2 days in a row without being active. But that's just how I'm wired. That's something I like about myself. Some people don't understand that, but yeah, so I like to be consistent in that. I think it's important to have going for me.
Damn. And so you gave some advice already, but you want to go a little further here. And what advice would you give to other men, facing major challenges, either a job transition, going through a divorce, going through a separation, losing their family? Your whole life could sort of restart at different stages of your life.
So the phrase "Southern grit" and second chances really rings home. My story is not textbook. It's not textbook at all. But it's one of those where I learned to hold things loosely, but also know that resilience is key and critical. And I've got to rise again. So I've literally left two careers to start again because I was sitting at a table that no longer served me. I left corporate to start a business. Stepped away from the business to start a culinary program. And then I realized that was a box that was too small for me because I had more to offer and more to do. And I rebuilt again. And then post divorce, I was like, you know what? This isn't what I wanted. This isn't the way I thought it was going to go. But, and so the cool thing is, and now that I'm speaking and doing things in that space, like had those things not have happened, I wouldn't be here. So everything happens for you and not to you.
Now you have an Instagram, you have social media. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? How's has that sort of empowered your new movement in life?
Oh, absolutely. This is an interesting question. So for me, over the last 10 years, like social media was always kind of a side thing. I really never put a lot into it. I didn't really ever feel the need, but now it's so key and critical. Again, that the last 8 months, I finally said, okay, now's the time. And a lot of that was because I hesitated because I didn't want to show up and be cliche or whatever. I wanted to have something authentic. And so now with Kevin Green Elevates, my speaking platform, I want to encourage and inspire and equip people to elevate every day, get better, particularly young professionals, college students, etc. And so now, like, I'm sharing what's in me, I'm releasing my voice, I'm kind of coming out of the closet a little bit because I was quiet for a long time, but now I have something to say, and there's people that need to hear it.
Yeah. So how can folks find you on the interwebs and then the social medias? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so on the interwebs and social media. So Instagram's at Chef Kevin Culinary. I'm on LinkedIn. It's Kevin Green Elevates, same as TikTok. And then internet is kevingreenelevates.com.
Right. That's awesome. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for speaking to us. Is there anything I have not touched on you want folks to know about you, or just say anything like things? Any last words about men's mental health during this month of Mental Health Awareness Month in June?
Yeah, I'll just say, add lastly, I went on, you mentioned Food Network's Chopped. I went on there, and if you have to go on national TV to kind of figure out yourself, why not? But that was a defining season. So you have to have a sense of yourself and who you are before you can figure out what to do. Identity comes before activity, and then you express. And so have a little signature swag, be bold about it, find out who you are, be confident. If I can help in any way, let me know.
Kevin, thank you so much for doing this. I do really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Appreciate it.
All right.